Okay, guys. So this is Neil, and we're going to get started and talk about the final section of the DRO in-service course, and that is talking about service delivery planning and financial forecasting and monitoring. This section, out of all three of the sections, is I think the the information that has not changed as much when comparing to sort of the other information, whether it's our concept of operations or the incident action planning process. This is pretty much straight forward process that's been in place for a little bit with some tweaks and changes along the way. So, we've got an hour and a half scheduled for this. I really don't think it'll take us, it's definitely not going to take us an hour and a half. It will not take us that long anyway. So I'm going to go through and walk through some of the components of the slides. And then I'll be here again, just like yesterday, to answer any questions. And so if you have questions that come up during the presentation, please ask them as they come up. You can either ask them, verbally over the phone, or you can send them up through the chat feature, and I will monitor that occasionally throughout the presentation. Typically your service delivery planning section is going to be, it'll be after your incident action plan exercise. So it'll be on the second day, and it'll be the last of the sections that you wrap up prior to heading out for prior to disbanding the class. So I am going to be developing a facilitator's guidebook for this section. I have not done that yet, but I anticipate working on that and getting that out next week. So you don't have that yet, but it is coming. So first, we'll just walk through the agenda a little bit, and this is how you'll talk to folks. And it really is some very basic processes here that we have in place. What you'll need to do prior to this, in advance of this section, obviously have the PowerPoint up. You'll also need to have a copy of a blank service delivery plan that you can get up. And then as we finish the section, the way that you finish it up is by walking people through the service delivery plan, and in general terms, talk about the different components of what a service delivery plan is. So you start with a little bit of introduction. You talk about what the sort of the purpose of the service delivery plan is, and again, what the goal is. And again, just like with the incident action plan, the goal is not to produce a document that's an end result, but your goal is to have a better run, more efficient operation that gives leadership the ability for oversight on an operation. So there is your introduction, and we talk a little bit about the purpose of why we created manage a service delivery plan. The main thing here on this component is, again, when you show people this document, if they haven't seen a service delivery plan, they may think, oh my gosh, there's so many things to do. And just as we mentioned yesterday, the need for the command and general staff to stay out of the tactics, this is a great time, again, to highlight why the command and general staff need to stay out of the tactical work so they can focus on forward planning and oversight and monitoring. You do that by spending a good time and developing a good, solid service delivery plan in addition to your incident action planning process, as well as the budget. So, and again, this is the purpose of why this was created. Again, it's not just busy work. It's not something you got to do it. This is the service delivery plan. The budget allows you to do these following these things that are listed on the screen. So we'll first jump into the tools. So the first one to jump into is a service delivery plan. You'll talk about that. That's really what you're going to be really focusing on. Then your budget, your 2066, and then you go down to the cost estimate. And this is an important thing always to highlight, just to make sure people are all on the same page and understand what this process is that the cost estimate is that public-facing tool that captures the entire cost of responding to the disaster. So your budget is going to say, let's say an example that your budget is $100,000 for your operation. Now, we cannot go, and we must not go public with the fact that your budget is $100,000 because it doesn't reflect the true cost of the operation. The cost of running, NSS and CAS 2.0 and those types of structural costs that need to be factored into it. So your true cost of the operation may be $150,000 or whatever the number happens to be. So that's why your budget is something that you do need to hold relatively close within just some senior leadership positions, so that you don't have people thinking that is the actual cost of the operation. Because again, if we do that, if we talking about how much we have budgeted versus the cost, we put two different numbers out there to the general public, and we cause ourselves quite a bit of headache. So when you're teaching, focus of attention on that and why it's important not to share the budget out publicly, and the fact that the cost estimate is something that will be provided to us by national headquarters. Then you've got the 5266, and explain basically what the 5266 is. Then your service delivery plan. Now we're going to start going through some of the tools. And the first one is your service delivery plan, and we'll talk about what that's a management tool, that these are the basic ideas. And again, it is a tool. It's not just something you have to do. I mean, you have to do it, but it's designed to be a tool for you on the operation to capture these things that are listed down here on the slide. So what has to be done, you know, where will it be done, when is it going to be done, those types of things. And then from your service delivery plan, this is where your budget is created. It's pulled and extracted from information from your service delivery plan. And so it's calculating, you know, what you know, your general servicing you provide, the cost of those, and then some support costs from logistics and technology and staffing and things like that. And then some requirements. So basically, just review the slide here. And this is another thing to a point, is this last point here, not to be exceeded without proper approval. This is another point, is that when you're a relief operation director and you're on the leadership team, you are held accountable for staying within the budget. So it's not a matter of just saying, oh, well, this is my budget and I can do whatever I need to do. No, you have to stay within the budget. Now, that also means that, you know, we're not going to, you know, impact service delivery. So if something else happens, or if your damage numbers have gone up and you found that you've changed and your service delivery plan is changing, then you just need to update your service delivery plan and work with your support folks in the operation to get it approved. That'll be your division, that'll be national headquarters, your region. It depends on the type and level of disaster for who that goes to. But that's an important thing, is that you can't exceed without proper approval on your budget. So the next couple of slides really go into the process for how a service delivery plan is created. And the first thing, again, just as we mentioned on anything, is that you've got to respond immediately. So don't let the service delivery plan impact service delivery. Don't say, well, I have to do my service delivery plan before I start responding. It's not designed for that. Just get your services started, get the services in the hands of the clients, and then come back and start assessing sort of your longer term plan. Some good points to mention here as you're as you're going through the process, is the timeline for service delivery plans in the DRO budget for level 2 operations and then higher operations. Notice it says that service delivery plan for level 3s must be within 5 to 7 days. However, in reality, we're going to request that sooner than that. It's typically about 3 days in is when we really want, for larger operations, the service delivery plan. So then again, you're walking through the process. Again, just basically walking through the process, make sure they understand the flow. And there'll be notes within the facilitator's guide to help you, have sort of these conversations. This is a good time on this part of the section when you're talking about who develops a cost estimate range. A DSF is Disaster Services Finance. And then they develop that cost estimate range. And if you need to make that estimate public, then fundraising is going to work with public affairs to develop talking points and things of that nature. So that is, again, not something you're going to have to do on the operation. That will be provided for you. And then, again, you highlight the process, and then this is what the result of the process is. You've got, you're empowered to make those financial decisions. The operation is accountable. But again, with that, with sort of that accountability comes that you have to stay within that budget, and you have to know where it is. And this is, again, where your DR director is ultimately accountable for monitoring and ensuring that you're staying within that budget, and then making adjustments or making requests for adjustments as the situation changes. So any questions so far on this component of the service delivery planning process? Again, we're going through this pretty quickly. It's not a very in-depth section, and is again just to, design people to get an overview of what the service delivery planning process looks like. And when teaching this course, when teaching the session, you typically have about 45 minutes to an hour. So it really is a short session, and you can get to it. And I have been told that the conversation on my end, the phone is breaking up from time to time, so I apologize. I'm not quite sure what the issue is, but But if, I am recording this session and it's recording off of my computer, so that should not be breaking up. So if you do need to, come back and re-listen, I'm going to be sending out the YouTube link to the session here later this afternoon, along with the session from yesterday. So then you move into budgetary approval authorities. So this is sort of where you talk about who has the responsibilities for budget approval authorities. And again, in this perspective, this is just knowledge that most people are going to have. Most people in the organization don't have the ability to approve budgets, and it's only with a certain few people within the organization. So, and that's based on separation of duties and all sorts of those, those fiscal controls. So, but this is a good knowledge to know that who has that authority. And then you got a slide here on the next one that really outlines who has that budgetary approval authorities. So you can see for level 1 operations under $10,000, it goes to the RDPO. Then level 2 jumps into the RCE, your regional CEO. Then up to the division disaster director, then the divisional vice president, and then all the way up on national gray sky operations, all folks up at national headquarters. So then in the long-term recovery, and this is again where you can just jump into sort of long-term recovery. And this is an important thing. The reason we mention this is that on sort of when we have sort of that longer-term recovery, you're not putting that out into your service delivery plan. So that is going to be done on a separate process if you have the funds to do so. Again, just as outlined within the recovery framework. And I encourage everyone to read the recovery framework because it will answer a lot of questions about this. But if there is funds allocated that are available for long-term recovery, that budgeting process and that planning process will happen independently from the service delivery plan. So again, your service delivery plan is really for that initial response phase of an operation. For most operations, it'll be several weeks. Your initial round of initial casework, but then your long-term recovery, if there are funds for that, will come, and you'll have to budget for that separately. And you highlight those points in those conversations. And this is, again, talking about why DRO budget information cannot be shared externally. So basic information, but it's important information because we will get ourselves into trouble if we do not highlight it and do not continue to reinforce it. Also, another thing to mention here that we'll talk about as you get into the service delivery plan and the 5266 is that we never share the second page of the 5266 widely, which is the amount of invoices that we receive in an operation. So we just don't share that widely. The first page can go to anybody internally in the operation, but the second page needs to stay pretty close within a few key leadership individuals on an operation. So then some basic service delivery plan philosophy and how some things have changed. So they've seen some updates on the service delivery plan that have been posted to the exchange. And so this is just some of the ways that it's changed, so you can just review that. If your folks have never seen the old service delivery plan, this really won't make a lot of sense because they won't have anything to compare it to. But still review it because you may have some different levels of experience in the room with you as you're teaching. And then we really run down into the impact assessment of what is it, this is sort of duplicating a little bit of the stuff in the IAP, so you can just, jump over. But again, this is important, and again, highlights the important why it's important to have that good impact assessment before you do your service delivery plan. And then your assessment elements. Again, just some basic stuff here. And then, history of the disasters, basic things of that nature. And the keys to success. And this next thing, I'm going to change the slide here. There is no practical exercise. Another division had done a practical exercise, but it requires every table to have computers, and that's not going to be possible in most locations. So basically, instead of a practical exercise, what you're going to do is you're going to, together as a group, walk through the service delivery plan and what that looks like. So, not line by line or anything, but they're really section by section and talk about it. And again, highlighting and reinforcing the aspects that you've talked about previously. So, like I said, this is the end of the presentation. It takes between 45 minutes to an hour. It's really, really basic stuff, and none of this stuff, with the exception of some of the changes in the updates, which is up here, and none of it's really new. So, yeah, does anyone have any questions? And let me jump to the chat feature to see if I had anything off the chat feature.
Neil, this is Eric.
Yeah, Eric.
Not so much about the content of this, but where will the latest version of the charts be kept? Will that be on the Division ShareNet or somewhere else?
What do you mean of the charts?
The PowerPoint files.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to send those out. I could post them up to the SharePoint site. We're still working on some challenges with the SharePoint site, but I'll send these out via email. And as things change, then I'll change them. But no, I do want to keep them up on the SharePoint site. I just want to make sure that we have access for everyone on that. We're having some challenges with it right now.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Because the latest I have are the ones from that very first call.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording right now, but thank you guys very much. And again, I'm available by phone, by email, anything you need to help support you in this. And I'm going to be rendering this afternoon and then getting this pushed up onto the YouTube page, hopefully by this afternoon, this evening. And you guys will get an email with the links to both the IAP section and this section. So in the interim, call me if you need anything, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.